The grand chamber of the Galactic Council glowed with soft blue light as Admiral Tai finished his presentation. The diverse assembly of alien representatives sat in curved rows, their attention fixed on the holographic display showing Earth, a small blue planet that had recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Admiral Tai, with his distinguished gray uniform and calm demeanor, stood at the center podium. His four-fingered hand gestured toward the rotating image of Earth. "We must consider the implications carefully," he said. "Humans evolved on a world with gravity 1.3 times the galactic average. Their musculature and bone density give them physical advantages that most Council races would find concerning." Council member Hana, her violet skin contrasting with her silver robes, leaned forward from her seat in the front row. Her elongated eyes narrowed with interest. "Tell us more about their military capabilities, Admiral," she requested. "Are they truly a threat?" Ta nodded gravely. "Their history reveals a species that has never known true peace. Even when they achieved planetary unification 50 of their years ago, they maintained military readiness. Their approach to space exploration has always included defensive considerations." The hologram shifted to show human spacecraft designs. Though smaller than most Council vessels, the weapon emplacements were obvious even to untrained eyes. "Note the weapon-to-hull ratio," Ta continued. "While our ships dedicate roughly 12% of mass to defensive systems, human vessels average 38%. Their entire design philosophy revolves around combat effectiveness, not comfort or scientific pursuits." Murmurs spread through the chamber as various representatives discussed this information with their aides. At the back of the hall, Ambassador Jun of the Craxian Empire stood up. His crimson armor gleamed as he moved toward the speaking platform. "The Admiral paints a frightening picture," Jun said, his voice carrying a mocking tone. "But we've heard such warnings before. Remember the reports about the Valkyrie? Supposedly unstoppable warriors, yet they surrendered after a single engagement with our Third Fleet." Several representatives nodded in agreement. The Craxian Empire had expanded rapidly in recent decades, absorbing smaller species into their territory. Their military might was unquestioned in this sector of the galaxy. Admiral Tay's expression remained neutral, but his voice took on a sharper edge. "The Valkyrie were a pre-spaceflight civilization with primitive projectile weapons. Humans have developed energy shields that can absorb direct hits from our standard weapons. Their targeting systems show precision beyond anything we encountered from a newly spacefaring race." June laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. "And where did they acquire such technology? Did they simply dream it up?" "They developed it independently," Tay replied. "Their technological progress has been unusual. Rather than following the standard development patterns we've observed in other species, humans seem to advance in surges, often driven by conflict." Council leader Minho, who had remained silent until now, raised his hand for attention. The chamber immediately quieted. "What do you recommend, Admiral?" Minho asked. "Cautious diplomatic engagement," Tay replied without hesitation. "Humans have shown interest in peaceful exchange, but they are wary. Their history has taught them to expect hostility from outsiders." Jun scoffed. "So we should treat these newcomers with special care because they might be dangerous." "This sounds like cowardice dressed as diplomacy." Tay turned to face Jun directly. "I strongly advise caution. Human warships are a deadly force. Underestimating them would be a serious mistake." The meeting concluded with no formal decision. The Council rarely moved quickly on new species introductions, preferring to gather more information before establishing official contact protocols. 2 days later, Admiral Tai was awakened by an urgent message. His communication device projected an image of his aide above his sleeping platform. "Admiral, the Craxians have mobilized their border fleet," the aide reported. "Long-range sensors indicate they're on course for the human colony at New Horizon." Ta dressed quickly, his movements efficient despite his age. "Has the Council been informed?" "Yes, sir. An emergency session has been called, but the Craxian representatives are claiming it's merely a training exercise." "Training exercises don't require an entire battle group," Tom muttered. How long until they reach New Horizon? Approximately 18 hours at their current speed. Ty hurried to the Council Command Center, where real-time data from monitoring stations throughout the sector flowed into massive display screens. The Craxian fleet's movement was clearly visible. 15 capital ships with numerous support vessels, all heading directly toward human space. Council leader Minho was already there, looking troubled. We've sent warnings to the Craxian High Command, but they're ignoring our communications. And the humans? Ty asked. We've detected increased activity around their defense stations, but no major fleet movements yet. They may not understand the threat. Ta moved to a communication terminal. We need to warn them directly. The Council hasn't authorized official contact, an aide reminded him. Minho considered for a moment, then nodded. Send the warning, Admiral. Basic information only. The next 18 hours were tense. The Council observation posts could only watch as the Craxian fleet entered the New Horizon system. The human colony was small, barely 20,000 settlers on a terraformed moon orbiting a gas giant. Their defensive capabilities seemed minimal compared to the approaching force. This will be a massacre, Ta said quietly. Then something unexpected happened. Just as the Craxian fleet approached weapon range, multiple small objects detached from the moon's surface. The observation post computers initially classified them as escape vessels, but their movement patterns were wrong. They're not running, Minho realized. Those are defense platforms. Before anyone could respond, the platforms opened fire. Energy beams more focused than anything in the Council's arsenal cut through the lead Craxian vessels. 3 ships were disabled in the first exchange. The Craxians adjusted quickly, bringing their main weapons to bear on the platforms. But the human defenses had unexpected mobility, using minimal thruster bursts to change position unpredictably. Then, from behind the gas giant, emerged 5 human warships. They were small by galactic standards, but moved with incredible speed, executing maneuvers that seemed to defy normal space physics. Those acceleration rates would kill most Council species, an analyst noted with awe. The human counterattack was devastating. Their weapons targeted specific systems rather than attempting to destroy entire vessels. Engines, weapon emplacements, and command centers were systematically disabled. Within 3 hours, the Craxian fleet was in full retreat, leaving behind 7 destroyed ships and 4 drifting helplessly in space. In the Council Command Center, Admiral Todd watched solemnly as the human vessels began rescue operations, retrieving escape pods from the disabled Craxian ships. They're saving the survivors, Minho observed. Todd nodded. Yes, and sending a message. What message? That they could have destroyed them all, but chose not to. Todd looked at the data streaming in from the observation posts. The Craxians ignored our warnings. I suspect they won't make that mistake again. Admiral N. Vasquez stood perfectly still as the casualty reports from New Horizon Colony filled the main screen. Her dark eyes reflected the scrolling numbers. 3,247 civilians dead. The youngest victim had been only 4 months old. Around her, the bridge of the UES Indomitable hummed with controlled activity. Officers spoke in hushed tones, moving with practiced efficiency despite the shock that had rippled through humanity in the past 24 hours. An alien species, previously unknown to them, had launched an unprovoked attack on their farthest colony. Play the final transmission again, Ian ordered, her voice steady. The central holographic display shifted to show the face of Colony Administrator Park. His office was filled with smoke, emergency lights flashing in the background. This is New Horizon sending emergency broadcast. We are under attack by unknown vessels. Our defensive platforms are responding but are overwhelmed by enemy numbers, civilian casualties. The transmission crackled with static, requesting immediate military support. They're targeting residential sectors now. Please hurry. The message ended with a burst of static. Administrator Park, and his entire staff had died minutes later when their command center took a direct hit. Yun's fist clenched slowly at her side. 6 hours after the attack began, long-range sensors had detected the enemy fleet retreating. By then, it was too late for New Horizons residents. The diplomatic corps has identified the attackers as the Craxian Empire, reported Commander Kim, approaching with a data tablet. Apparently, they're a dominant power in this sector. The Galactic Council sent us warning messages about their approach, but they arrived too late. Yun nodded. And what has the Council done to punish this aggression? Kim's expression tightened. Nothing beyond formal protests. The Council appears to operate on consensus, and the Craxians hold significant influence. I see. Yun turned to face the tactical station where Lieutenant Jin was working. Status of the combat systems. Jin looked up from his console. Athena Combat AI is fully operational. Admiral, I've uploaded all available data on Craxian ship capabilities from the New Horizon defense platforms. The AI is already identifying potential weaknesses in their shield configurations and weapon systems. The HFY system represented 20 years of human military research and artificial intelligence specifically designed for space combat. It could process tactical information thousands of times faster than human operators and suggest optimal responses to any battlefield situation. And fleet status? Yun asked, turning to Commander Kim. All ships report ready, Admiral. The 7th Fleet is at full combat readiness. The 7th Fleet consisted of 12 vessels, with the Indomitable as its flagship. By Craxian standards, it was a small force. But humans had taken a different approach to ship design. Yun walked to the central display, which now showed a comparison between the Indomitable and a Craxian dreadnought. The human vessel was less than half the size, but scans indicated its weapon systems were far more concentrated. Where Craxian ships devoted massive space to crew quarters, ceremonial halls, and status displays, human ships were compact machines of war. Their ships are built to impress, Yun observed. Ours are built to fight. The Indomitable's most revolutionary feature was its adaptive shield system. Unlike the static energy barriers used by Craxian vessels, human shields could dynamically shift frequencies to counter enemy weapons. The technology had been developed after studying fragments of alien vessels discovered on Earth decades earlier. Visitors who had come in peace but crashed due to equipment failure. Open fleet-wide communication, Yun ordered. A soft tone indicated the channel was open. The faces of 11 other ship captains appeared on the display. This is Admiral Vasquez. The attack on New Horizon represents the first hostile action against humanity by an alien power. Our response will set a precedent for how Earth is treated by galactic civilizations going forward. She paused, noting the resolute expressions of her captains. Make no mistake, this is not about revenge. It is about justice and deterrence. The Craxians attacked without warning or provocation. They targeted civilian structures deliberately. We will show them that such actions have consequences. Captain Han of the cruiser Defiant spoke up. Intelligence suggests the Craxian force that attacked New Horizon was small by their standards. We may face much stronger opposition. That's correct, Yun acknowledged. But we have advantages they don't expect. The HFY system has already analyzed their attack patterns and shield modulations. More importantly, they believe us to be a primitive species barely capable of interstellar travel. Their intelligence is severely lacking, remarked Captain Seo of the destroyer Swift Justice with a grim smile. Precisely, Yun agreed. Earth unified after the last war specifically to prevent human extinction. For 50 years, we've been preparing for threats from beyond our system. The Craxians attacked thinking we were simple prey. They'll learn otherwise. Lieutenant Jin looked up from his console. Admiral, jump calculations are complete. The fleet can depart immediately. Yun returned to her command chair and sat down with deliberate calm. Set course for the Craxian border fleet. According to Council data, They've regrouped at their forward base in the Proxima Latent system. That's deep in their territory, Admiral, Commander Kim pointed out. We'd be outnumbered. Numbers aren't everything, Commander. Uncheck the tactical display one last time. The Craxians need to understand that distance will not protect them from the consequences of their actions. If we strike only at border outposts, they'll consider it a minor inconvenience. She activated her neural link to the ATGENA system, feeling the cool touch of the AI at the edges of her consciousness. Data flowed directly into her mind. Jump trajectories, weapon efficacy projections, tactical simulations. All ships, prepare for jump, she ordered. Combat stance alpha. Weapons hot on arrival. As the fleet aligned for the faster-than-light jump, Yun sent one final message. They attacked our people without provocation or warning. Now they'll learn why that was a mistake. The stars on the view screen stretched into lines as the Indomitable leaped into hyperspace, followed closely by the rest of the fleet. In the darkness between stars, humanity's response to aggression was on its way, smaller than their enemy expected, but far more deadly than they could imagine. General Du stood proudly on the command deck of the Eternal Glory, his tall figure enhanced by the ceremonial armor that marked his high status. The massive view screen showed the approaching human vessels, tiny specks against the vast backdrop of space. Behind him, 20 crew members worked at their stations, monitoring the Craxian battle fleet systems. Magnify those ships, Du ordered, his voice carrying the confidence of a commander who had never lost a battle. The screen zoomed in on the human vessels. They were sleek and compact, lacking the ornate design elements that Craxian ships displayed as symbols of their empire's greatness. The largest human ship was barely one-third the size of the Eternal Glory. "Look at those pathetic vessels," Du said with a laugh. "Their entire fleet could fit inside our flagship." The Craxian Empire had ruled this sector of space for 3 centuries. Their military might was legendary, their ships designed to inspire fear with their size and weaponry. The attack on the human colony had been meant as a simple message. Know your place in the galaxy. Sensor analysis, Officer Sung, Du commanded. Tactical Officer Sung studied his console with careful attention. Unlike his general, Sung believed in thorough preparation, even against seemingly weak opponents. "Sir, the human ships are heavily armed for their size," Sung reported. "They appear to be using the asteroid field to mask their approach vectors." Du waved his hand dismissively. Standard tactics against a superior force. Nothing creative. The Craxian fleet consisted of 30 ships arranged in their traditional arrow formation. The Eternal Glory led from the center, with heavy cruisers forming the arrowhead and smaller vessels protecting the flanks. It was a formation that had broken countless enemy fleets. "Their ships are approaching at high speed," another officer reported. "They'll be in weapons range in 3 minutes. Prepare to fire the main cannons," Du ordered. "Target their flagship first. Once it's destroyed, the rest will retreat." Sung frowned at his readings. "Sir, their formation is unlike anything in our tactical database. They're splitting into 3 groups and accelerating toward the gas giant." Du squinted at the tactical display. The human ships had indeed broken formation, with 4 vessels diving toward the massive gas giant that dominated this star system. The move made no tactical sense to him. What are they doing? He wondered aloud. That will take them away from the battle. Perhaps they're retreating already, suggested his second-in-command with a smirk. No, Sung said slowly. They're using the gravity well somehow. Their speed is increasing beyond normal engine capacity. Du laughed again. Let them run. Focus weapons on their main group. Fire when ready. The massive energy cannons of the Eternal Glory powered up, their charge creating a low hum throughout the ship. The targeting systems locked onto the human flagship, still approaching directly. Suddenly, the bridge rocked violently. Crew members were thrown from their stations as alarms blared throughout the ship. What happened? Du demanded, grabbing a console to steady himself. Sung stared at his displays in shock. 3 of our escort ships just Disappeared. Gone, sir. Impossible. Where did the attack come from? The human ships near the gas giant, Sun replied, his voice unsteady. They used the gravity well to accelerate beyond our targeting solutions. They struck simultaneously from a direction our shields weren't focused on. On the tactical display, Du watched in disbelief as the human vessels performed maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. They changed direction at speeds that would kill any Craxian crew, their engines pulsing with energy signatures unlike anything he had seen before. Fire all weapons, Du ordered. Launch missile batteries. The Eternal Glory released a barrage of destructive force that should have annihilated the approaching vessels. But the human ships released smaller objects from their hulls, defensive drones that intercepted every missile. Meanwhile, their point defense systems tracked and destroyed incoming energy bolts with precision. "Sir, we've lost contact with the unyielding strength," reported the communications officer. "The Glorious Victory is reporting critical damage to their engine core." Another violent impact shook the flagship. Warning lights flashed across every console. "Shield generators 3 and 4 are down," Sun reported. "They're targeting specific systems, not just firing randomly." Du watched in growing horror as a human vessel barely 1/5 the size of a Craxian cruiser approached the majestic conqueror. The human ship fired a concentrated beam that sliced through the cruiser's command section with surgical precision. The Craxian vessel's lights flickered and died. "They know exactly where to hit us," Sung whispered. "It's as if they understand our ship designs better than we do." Another explosion rocked the fleet as 2 more Craxian vessels were struck by precisely aimed weapons fire. The human ships moved in patterns that made no sense, splitting apart, rejoining, accelerating and decelerating in ways that made them nearly impossible to target. "Our formation is breaking," the navigation officer reported with panic in his voice. "Ships are losing coordination." Du had never seen anything like it. His perfectly ordered battle fleet was falling into chaos. The humans weren't just fighting. They were systematically dismantling his forces with terrifying efficiency. "Impossible," Du whispered as another cruiser exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The vessel had been one of their newest models, supposedly impervious to standard weapons. The bridge shook again, more violently this time. Emergency lights activated as the main power fluctuated. "Direct hit to our main power core," Sun reported. "Backup systems engaging, but weapons are at 30% capacity." Through the view screen, Du watched as human vessels surrounded another Craxian cruiser. They didn't simply destroy it. They targeted engines, weapons, and command systems in sequence, leaving the massive ship floating helplessly. "Sir, we've lost 11 ships," the tactical officer reported. 7 more are disabled. The humans have lost none. The reality of the situation finally broke through Du's confidence. His fleet, 1/3 destroyed, another third crippled, had been fighting for less than an hour. "Fall back," he ordered, his voice barely audible. "Sir," his second-in-command questioned. "Fall back," Du shouted. "All ships fall back. Emergency jump to Rally Point Delta." As the Eternal Glory limped away, trailing atmosphere from breaches in its hull, Du stared at the tactical display, showing the human vessels regrouping with military precision. They weren't pursuing. They didn't need to. The message had been delivered. How? He asked no one in particular. How could ships so small defeat us so completely? Sung, checking damage reports at his station, looked up with grim understanding. "Because we believe size determined strength, sir. We were wrong." The remnants of the once proud Craxian fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind destruction that would send shockwaves through the Empire. The humans had not just won a battle. They had shattered the myth of Craxian invincibility. Emperor Su sat on his golden throne in the imperial palace of Craxia Prime. His long fingers tapped nervously on the armrest as he read the battle reports. Around him, the grand chamber was silent. 12 high-ranking military officers stood at attention, none willing to make eye contact. This is impossible, Emperor Su finally said, his voice echoing in the vast room. How could a fleet of our mighty empire be defeated by a handful of primitive ships? The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed the battle data. Craxian ships, represented by red symbols, outnumbered the human vessels 3-1. Yet the simulation showed red symbols disappearing rapidly, while the blue human markers remained intact. Fleet Admiral Young stepped forward and bowed deeply. His face bore a fresh scar from the battle. He had been aboard one of the few ships to escape. Your Majesty, the humans don't fight like any species we've encountered, Young explained. Their ships are small but incredibly fast. Their weapons are precisely targeted to disable our key systems. Emperor Su leaned forward. But we outnumbered them. Our ships are larger, more powerful. Yes, Your Majesty, but the humans adapted during battle, Young continued. They seemed to learn our tactics as we used them. When we changed formation, they had counters ready within minutes. It was as if they could predict our movements. The Emperor stood and walked to the holographic display. He waved his hand through the simulation, watching it replay the devastating defeat. You're telling me these humans, who only achieved space travel a century ago, have better military technology than our empire? Su's voice was dangerously quiet. Young hesitated before answering. Their technology is not necessarily better, Your Majesty. It's different. They've focused on efficiency rather than size. Their ships carry minimal crews, with many systems automated. This allows them to perform maneuvers that would kill our warriors. Emperor Su turned to his war council. And what do you recommend, Admiral? Should we surrender to these humans? Should the Craxian Empire, which has ruled this sector for 300 years, bow to a species that has barely left its home planet? The chamber remained silent. Su's eyes narrowed. No, we will not accept defeat. We will not show weakness. He turned to his Supreme Commander. Deploy the Imperial Reserve Fleet. All of it. Gasps filled the chamber. The Imperial Reserve had never been fully mobilized in the Empire's history. Your Majesty, Young protested, perhaps a diplomatic. Silence. Su shouted. These humans attacked our forces. They must learn their place. The entire reserve fleet will crush them completely. Far away, in orbit around Jupiter's moon Ganymede, Admiral Ian Vasquez floated in the observation bay of Earth's largest shipyard. Through the massive viewport, she watched workers in spacesuits swarming around an enormous vessel unlike any built before. Admiral, the final system checks are complete, reported Chief Engineer Hyun, who floated up beside her. The Spear of Olympus is ready. Hyun nodded, studying the ship with critical eyes. How much of the Craxian data did we incorporate? Everything, Hyun replied proudly. The ATGNA combat system analyzed every second of the battle. We've reinforced the areas they targeted and upgraded our weapons based on their shield frequencies. The Spear of Olympus was humanity's newest warship. Unlike the smaller vessels that had fought at Proxima Legion, this was a true capital ship, yet it maintained the human philosophy of efficiency over size. At half the length of a Craxian dreadnought, it carried twice the firepower. The reactive armor is the biggest improvement, Hyun continued, pointing to the ship's hull. It can change composition in response to enemy weapons, becoming harder or more flexible as needed. And the phased weaponry? Hyun asked. Unlike anything we've deployed before, the energy beams can shift frequency mid-shot to penetrate any shield configuration. Hyun turned as a young officer approached with a datapad. Intelligence report, Admiral. The Craxians are marshaling their forces near their home system. Long-range sensors show at least 200 ships gathering. 200, Hyun whispered. That must be their Imperial Reserve, Hyun finished. They're committing everything. Then they've learned nothing from our first encounter, Hyun said quietly. Hyun studied the intelligence report carefully. Perhaps they've learned too much. They won't underestimate us again. Should we request additional ships from the Mars shipyards? The officer asked. Un shook her head. No time. The 7th Fleet plus the Spear will have to be enough. That's only 15 ships against 200, Him pointed out. Elon smiled slightly. Quality over quantity, engineer. Prepare the fleet for departure in 6 hours. The Craxians are coming, and I'd rather meet them at the edge of our system than near Earth. 3 weeks later, at the heliopause where the sun's influence gave way to interstellar space, sensors detected multiple hyperspace ruptures. The Craxian Imperial Reserve Fleet emerged like a metal storm. 200 warships arranged in perfect formation around a massive command vessel 3 times the size of anything seen before. Admiral Young stood on the bridge of the Imperial Devastator, the pride of the Craxian fleet. His emperor stood beside him, having insisted on witnessing the battle personally. "Where are the humans?" Emperor Su demanded. "Our sensors detect nothing." Young frowned at the displays. "They must be hiding somewhere in the system. Begin advance toward their home planet." As the massive fleet moved forward, sensors suddenly detected energy signatures directly ahead. 15 vessels, Your Majesty, reported the tactical officer. 14 matched the profiles from the previous engagement. But the lead ship is something new. On the main view screen, the human fleet appeared. Small, sleek vessels arranged around a larger ship that gleamed silver in the distant sunlight. Emperor Su laughed. "This is their defense. 15 ships against our 200. Begin the attack." The Craxian fleet surged forward, weapons charging. But instead of retreating or scattering, the human ships accelerated directly toward them. The battle began with a blinding flash as the Spear of Olympus fired its main weapon, a concentrated beam that sliced through 3 Craxian cruisers simultaneously. The human fleet then split into 5 smaller groups, each targeting a different section of the Craxian formation. "They're inside our lines," Young shouted as human ships somehow bypassed the outer defensive screen. How did they move so fast? On the bridge of the Spear of Olympus, Admiral Yun watched the HFY system's projections with satisfaction. The AI had predicted the Craxian formation perfectly and identified the optimal attack vectors. "Target their command and control nodes," she ordered. "Then move to Phase 2. The human ships executed maneuvers that even their previous encounter hadn't prepared the Craxians for. They seemed to anticipate every defensive adjustment, every tactical shift. When the Craxians concentrated their fire, the human ships would suddenly change direction at accelerations that defied conventional physics. The Spear of Olympus moved through the Craxian formation like a scythe through wheat. Its advanced targeting systems found vulnerabilities no one knew existed, while its reactive armor absorbed punishment that would have destroyed any other vessel. "Impossible," Emperor Su shouted as his ships exploded around him. "How are they doing this?" Admiral Young stared at the tactical display in horror. The carefully arranged Craxian fleet had disintegrated into chaos. Ship captains were issuing contradictory orders, formations were breaking apart, and the humans were exploiting every gap. "Your Majesty, we must retreat," Young urged. "The humans have some kind of technology that predicts our moves before we make them." But it was too late. The Spear of Olympus appeared directly ahead of the Imperial Devastator, its weapons locked on the command bridge. "All stop," Young ordered quietly. "Power down weapons." The battle ended just 4 hours after it began. The mighty Imperial Reserve Fleet, pride of the Craxian Empire, had been shattered. Over half the ships were destroyed, and most others disabled. The Imperial Devastator floated helplessly, surrounded by human vessels. Emperor Su, his face ashen, watched as a communication request came through. Admiral Ian Vasquez's face appeared on the screen. "Emperor Su, your fleet has been defeated. We offer terms for your surrender." Su looked around at his broken bridge, at the officers who had witnessed the unthinkable. His empire's invincibility, maintained for centuries, had been disproven in a single afternoon. "How?" he asked simply. Ian's expression remained neutral. "You attacked us without provocation. We responded. The terms of surrender will be transmitted shortly." As the transmission ended, Sue turned to Admiral Young. "These humans, they are not what we thought they were." Young nodded grimly. "No, Your Majesty. They are much more." In the vast expanse of space, a historic moment unfolded as the Galactic Council gathered for an emergency session. Representatives from countless worlds watched in tense silence as the surviving Craxian leaders signed the armistice that would change everything. Chancellor Min spoke with careful wisdom, highlighting a crucial lesson learned through conflict. Humans, a seemingly young species, had proven themselves to be far more formidable than anyone had imagined. Their capacity for both peace and decisive warfare had shocked the entire galaxy. Ambassador Wan of the Craxians stood before the assembly, his voice heavy with regret. He admitted the terrible mistake his people had made, underestimating humanity's true nature. What they had seen as diplomatic weakness was actually a carefully controlled potential for destruction. In the years that followed, something remarkable happened. Species from across the galaxy began seeking alliances with Earth. The humans, despite having the power to completely subjugate their defeated enemies, chose a path of cooperation and mutual understanding. Military academies across different worlds began teaching a new mandatory course about human warfare. The lessons were not just about tactics and technology, but about understanding a species that could be simultaneously peaceful and devastatingly powerful when provoked. One veteran instructor would start each new class with a simple but powerful message. Humans were not to be taken lightly. They were a civilization that believed in talking first, but possessed the capability to end conflicts decisively if pushed too far. The story of the human-Craxian conflict became a legend, a cautionary tale whispered in diplomatic halls and military training rooms. It was a reminder that true strength lies not just in military might, but in the wisdom to use that power with restraint and purpose. As starships continued to traverse the galaxy, one thing became clear. Humanity had earned a reputation that would be remembered for generations to come.